So here we are considering Revelation chapter 6 to 11. So we're almost done here. And yeah, it'd be nice to complete all this, right? You guys have done well to stick with us all through the year. And I'm sorry that we ran into the problem with the technology that we got behind. But we're almost done. And then we get started all over again tomorrow, right? So as we read through this, we're reading a lot about the destruction, a lot of things that are befalling on the earth, and I don't want to get too much into the eschatology of all of this. There's a lot of differing opinions, and it depends on the lens that you have. It depends on where you live in the world. It depends on what you understand about the culture. There's a lot of stuff that's involved here, but we get the general idea of what we're heading towards and what's going on. I'm constantly drawn to as we read through this, to the throne room, what's going on in the throne room. I'm more interested in what's going on in the throne room than I am on the destruction of the world. But there is something I noted, and I may at some point write further on this. There's something that when God's hand really is forced to take action, it comes from a place, and maybe we don't really recognize this, but we should. During the time of Noah, humanity had gotten to such a point where it really could not do anymore. There was no more evil that it could commit. It had reached any evil that it could commit, it had committed. And it seems that when humanity or a city or a group gets to that point, that really is the point of no return. Once they've got to that depravity, often we say a person has to hit bottom before they can be lifted up. And maybe that's something that we have to look at. Maybe they reach close to bottom, but it seems that when a person our group reaches that bottom, that's where God says there's no return, and he really takes action with that. So in the case of Noah, we see that God started over again, and he said he wouldn't do that again. We see it with Sodom and Gomorrah. There was no righteousness that could be found. Nothing. No righteousness could be found in that city. It had reached its fullness of evil. There was nothing, no further depravities that could be committed in those cities, and so God removed them. When we look at what happened with Israel and Judah, God said that if they broke one law, he would remove them from the land. But you look at the amount of grace that was extended to those people, and it was simply because God was showing them grace, and his hope was that they would turn around. And he sent prophet after prophet after prophet. And some of you would say, well, doesn't God know? I mean, he knows the future. But it doesn't rob him of his hope. And so he sent prophet after prophet and gave them every opportunity to turn around. And so Israel was taken. And then when Judah reached that same point, in the scripture says, where no more evil could be committed, it had committed everything it could possibly commit. There was nothing more evil could ever be invented than what they had already committed. And so when they hit that stage, no matter what happened, that was it. They were done. It was a point of no return. And so we can look at the world now, and people say, well, when is Jesus going to return? And the scripture tells us that he is delaying so that the very last person who can be saved, that will enter in. But we will get to a point of no return in the world where the depravity will be such that no more evil could be committed, that the most vile, every possible sin, every possible evil act that could be committed will be practiced at that time. And we know this to be because when we look at all these disasters and we see all these things that are befalling the people, we see that none of them convince them to turn their hearts towards him. So anyway, that's something for you to consider. You be blessed. Talk to you soon.